Women and Gender in 17th Century England. Part 3. Aphra Behn's Love Letters between a Nobleman and his Sister. Early modern women are surprising in so many ways. But the most extraordinary woman writer of the 17th century is undoubtedly Aphra Behn. There's far too much to be said about her for me to say it all here, and I'll come back to her in future podcasts. For now, though, I'll limit myself to a discussion of love letters between a nobleman and his sister, written in 3 parts from 1684 to 1687. The first part of the novel was published anonymously, while parts 2 and 3 give the author merely as A.B. And while it's usually attributed to Behn, not all scholars are convinced that she is, in fact, the author. If you're interested in following that up, Leah Orr's 2013 paper, Attribution Problems in the Fiction of Aphra Behn, and Kate Osment's From Recovery to Restoration, Aphra Behn and Feminist Bibliography, 2018, make the case for doubting that it is her work. Whether Behn was the author or not, Love Letters between a Nobleman and his Sister is a highly significant piece of work. As well as being the first epistolary novel in English, it is remarkable for the way in which it challenges all kinds of religious and social taboos. For example, challenging the idea that marriages, even unhappy ones, are made in heaven, the author has the female protagonist proclaim, "Curse on your nonsense, you imposing gown men! Curse on your holy cant! You may as well call rapes and murders, treason and robbery, the acts of heaven. Because heaven suffers them to be committed, is it heaven's pleasure, therefore, heaven's decree? A trick, a wise device of priests, no more, to make the nauseated, tired-out pair drag on the careful business of life, drudge for the dull-got family with greater satisfaction, because they're taught to think marriage was made in heaven." That's pretty groundbreaking for the 17th century. And while it may perhaps have been written by a man, that mention of rape makes it, to my mind, far more likely to have been the work of a woman. And there were few other women, apart from Behn, who wielded a pen of such sharp, direct asperity. Anyway, here's the basic plot. A young man, Philander, is married to a woman whom he does not love. Rather, he loves his wife's sister, Sylvia. Sylvia has told him he must keep away from her, but he is head over heels in love and cannot restrain himself. So he writes a letter to Sylvia begging her to allow their love to grow. It's a bit long perhaps, but I think it's worth quoting it in full, so here goes. To Sylvia. Though I parted from you, resolved to obey your impossible commands, yet know, O charming Sylvia, that after 1,000 conflicts between love and honour, I found the god, too mighty for the idol, reign absolute monarch in my soul, and soon banished that tyrant thence, that cruel counsellor that would suggest to you 1,000 fond arguments to hinder my noble pursuit. Sylvia came in view, her irresistible idea, with all the charms of blooming youth, with all the attractions of heavenly beauty, loose, wanton, gay, all flowing her bright hair and languishing her lovely eyes, her dress all negligent as when I saw her last, discovering 1,000 ravishing graces, round, white, small breasts, delicate neck and rising bosom, heaved with sighs she would in vain conceal, and all besides that nicest fancy can imagine surprising. Oh, I dare not think on, lest my desires grow mad and raving. Let it suffice, O adorable Sylvia. I think and know enough to justify that flame in me which our weak alliance of brother and sister has rendered so criminal. But he that adores Sylvia should do it at an uncommon rate. 'Tis not enough to sacrifice a single heart, to give you a simple passion. Your beauty should, like itself, produce wondrous effects. It should force all obligations, all laws, all ties, even of nature's self. You, my lovely maid, were not born to be obtained by the dull methods of ordinary loving, and 'tis in vain to prescribe me measures, and much more in vain to urge the nearness of our relation. What kin, my charming Sylvia, are you to me? No ties of blood forbid my passion? And what's a ceremony imposed on man by custom? What is it to my divine Sylvia that the priest took my hand and gave it to your sister? What alliance can that create? Why should a trick devised by the wary old only to make provision for posterity tie me to an eternal slavery? No, no, my charming maid, 'tis nonsense all. Let us, born for mightier joys, scorn the dull beaten road, but let us love like the first race of men nearest allied to God. Promiscuously they loved, and possessed, father and daughter, brother and sister met, and reaped the joys of love without control, and counted it religious coupling, and 'twas encouraged too by heaven itself. Therefore start not, too nice and lovely maid, at shadows of things that can but frighten fools. Put me not off with these delays. Rather say you dissembled love all this while, than now 'tis born to die again with a poor fright of nonsense, a fit of honour, a phantom imaginary, and no more. No, no, represent me to your soul more favourably. Think you see me languishing at your feet, breathing out my last in sighs and kind reproaches on the pitiless Sylvia. Reflect, when I am dead, which will be the more afflicting object? The ghost, as you are pleased to call it, of your murdered honour, or the pale and bleeding one of the lost Philander? There are several points of interest here. The first is that after 1,000 conflicts between love and honour, Philander chooses the god, that is, love, rather than the tyrannic idol, that is to say, honour. According to the social code of the time, one's love should never bring dishonour, either to the man or to his lover. He goes on to describe his lover as loose and wanton, words which suggest sexual immorality, but Philander uses them as terms of praise, not of censure, and his description of her ravishing graces, round, white, small breasts, delicate neck and rising bosom, heaved with sighs, is unabashedly sensual. Philander goes on to speak of their weak alliance of brother and sister, noting that no ties of blood forbid my passion, and making light of the fact that he's married to Sylvia's sister. What alliance could that create? By dismissing his wedding vows, he breaks one of the fundamental taboos of early modern society. Marriages were considered to be according to the will of God. They twain shall be one flesh, so then they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder, as the Gospel according to St. Mark has it. Even more daringly, he cites biblical authority for the idea that even though their love is not incestuous, it would not be sinful anyway, since after creating Adam and Eve, their children and grandchildren were encouraged by heaven itself to lie together as father and daughter, brother and sister, in order to populate the world. The conventional explanation would be that God had made a special allowance in those particular circumstances but once the world was peopled, the laws against sleeping with family members were absolute. Again, Philander defies religious principles, social conventions, and accepted moral standards. Against his passion for Sylvia, none of these matter. Philander also tells Sylvia she should be won by a love so strong it can force all obligations, all laws, all ties, even of nature's self, concluding she was not born to be obtained by the dull methods of ordinary loving. This portrayal of love as an all-consuming passion that overrides all other considerations is the central feature of the novel. Philander's uncommon love that sets aside all conventions and takes pleasure in the woman's physical beauty and her uninhibited sexuality is a challenge to everything the early modern world stands for. And it is written, or probably written, by a woman. What message is she communicating to her readers? That this is how a woman wants to be loved? Perhaps. Sylvia, in her reply, tells Philander, "With what regret I made you promise to prefer my honour before your love," making it clear that she loves him in return, and at the end of the first part they determine to elope together to Holland. In the end, though, their love is ill-starred. They're forced to separate, and first Philander and then Sylvia embark on affairs with other lovers. By the end of the third part, Sylvia is a prostitute. Is this Behn giving the tale a moral to appease her conservative readers? Mary Roth's Urania was withdrawn from publication after she was accused of satirizing real-life individuals in it. Love Letters Between a Nobleman and His Sister, too, is partly based on the real-life love affair between the politician Lord Grey, the first Earl of Tankerville, and Henrietta Berkeley, his wife's sister. Ford Grey was taken to court by Henrietta's father, and Henrietta was called before the court, where the Lord Chief Justice, Sir Francis Pemberton, told her, "You have injured your own reputation and prostituted both your body and your honour," as recorded in 1776 in the complete collection of state trials and proceedings for high treason and other crimes and misdemeanours. Henrietta was imprisoned for 3 days, while Grey, despite being censored, was not sentenced to any punishment. In the novel, too, Philander pays no penalty for his loose behaviour, and Grey's elopement and shifting political fortunes are loosely mirrored. A novel alluding to a scandal involving a public figure of Grey's prominence was a risky enterprise, and whether or not Aphra Behn was the author, and I'm inclined to think she was, there were good reasons for remaining anonymous. What Mary Roth and Aphra Behn and other women writers achieved in the 17th century should not be underestimated. English society continued to be male-dominated, and most women were dependent on men, both economically and in the eyes of the law. But by taking up the pen, women demonstrated that the power of the word was not only in the hands of men. As Abraham Cowley indicates in his dedicatory verses preface to the poems of Catherine Phillips, the autonomous female author is a challenge to male assumptions of superiority. We allowed your beauty, and we did submit to all the tyrannies of it. Ah, cruel sex, will you depose us too in wit? To find out more about 17th century women, see the section on women writers living between 1601 and 1700 on the University of Pennsylvania's web pages, a celebration of women writers. The Women in Book History Bibliography website, maintained by the University of Illinois, is also an excellent resource. You have been listening to Sensei. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my channel or join as a channel member.